the meeting. Barb, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was just saying all goofy. There. Mr. Forster, are there any additions to the agenda?
No changes tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Move on to the consent agenda. If everybody's had a chance to look at the consent agenda, I'm open to a motion to approve it.
Yeah, I would move to approve the consent agenda as written. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Visitors' appearances and requests. Would anybody in the audience like to speak to us tonight? Is there anybody on Zoom? Okay. All right, no council presentations or council business, so we'll move to item number 2, funding for a Vector truck purchase and Chrissy grant match, Lori Hooper Antrim. So before Lori comes up and presents this, I wanted to say something about the last meeting that I didn't think about, and I sat at home and I thought through the whole meeting. Lori presented to us, and I guess this kind of has to do with what you're asking because it's part of that. But Lori sat and presented to us that funding that we saw, those three buckets of funding, the money that was going into each. And I guess at the time I was just kind of in awe of what had happened, that is something that we'd worked, the staff had worked diligently towards, council's direction to the staff and Steve and what we want for our future. And I felt so bad that I didn't say anything. I even came in and told Steve, I said, man, I feel terrible. I didn't say thanks or tell the kid. We didn't talk about it, but I'm guessing the rest of you were kind of how I felt. I just kind of sat there. I'm like, man, that's really cool. That's something we all worked on, and that is taking the last 15 years and setting up our future for the next generation. And so I wanted to tell Lori, thank you very much for helping us put that together and showing us the fruits of that labor, and that now people will start to see what we were giving up 15 years ago and the benefits it was going to bring in the future. We're now starting to see that, and it's now going to benefit us in the community. So I wanted to thank you for that, and thank the council for all that direction that had been worked on up to that point, because I'm gonna brag about the city a little bit, but we're far ahead of any of our contemporary peers in this realm. I've had people reach out to me from all over the country and ask how we did it. And I just keep singing our praises, and I point them to the direction they need to go in. But this is something that's awesome, that my kids and grandkids are now going to have, that benefits them too. So thank you. And thank you, council, for the.
I'm not sure what to say, but thank you. It wasn't just me. It was definitely a team effort with the city leadership and council working together. Thank you. Okay, let's talk fun stuff. The general fund reserve usage proposal. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lori Hooper Antrim, Finance Director, for the record. Tonight, I'll walk through staff's recommendation on using general fund policy reserves to support 2 already budgeted infrastructure needs, the vacuum truck purchase and the Chrissy grant match. Both total $1 million and qualify under our reserve policy as infrastructure supporting expenditures. Just for reference, Chrissy stands for Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements. It's an acronym. Before discussing the projects, here's a quick recap of our reserves. As part of our 2024 financial policy update, we strengthened the structure of the general fund reserve categories. Our audited FY25 ending numbers set our FY26 beginning fund balance at $10.6 million. From that, 2.8 million is set aside for the 20% emergency reserve, and 2.1 million supports our 9-month working capital reserve. That leaves about 5.5 million in unassigned policy reserves across the 3 priority categories, each with roughly $825,000, plus about 3 million in the council discretion reserve. This means that we're in a strong financial position as we consider how to fund these 2 needs. The Chrissy grant match is $400,000 supporting a $2 million rail improvement project. We expect the federal grant funding to be obligated within the next month, and our match should be available at that time. The project replaces approximately 9,700 ties under our 18-mile rail line, improving safety, environmental performance, and long-term reliability. The vacuum truck is approximately $600,000, and council approved the purchase back in September with the understanding that staff would return with a financing plan prior to delivery. The truck is scheduled to arrive in mid-April. This piece of equipment is vital to our core infrastructure operations and is used nearly every day. The truck is essential for sewer cleaning, hydro excavation, and emergency response for water and sewer failures. When we built the budget for BN 27, internal financing looked like the most practical approach because of high interest rates and economic uncertainty. But since then, the landscape and our reserve position has made using cash a more advantageous option. Paying cash offers significant long-term benefits, including avoiding interest costs entirely, reducing administrative overhead, preserving our debt capacity for future needs, increasing future budget flexibility, and ensuring we're still not paying on equipment late in its service life. Specific to the vacuum truck, paying cash for the reserves mitigates impacts on ratepayers by supporting the city's ability to maintain competitive water and sewer rates. The trade-off is reduced reserves, but even with this use, we will remain well above policy thresholds. If council prefers to not use reserves, staff will then return in April with an internal borrowing resolution. Internal borrowing is still a cost-effective option, but it creates a multi-year repayment obligation that cash funding avoids. Both the vacuum truck and the Chrissy grant match are already included in the BN 27 budget, and neither funding option requires a budget adjustment. Using reserves would reduce the priority category reserves by $1 million, either entirely from the council discretion to be distributed reserve or split between infrastructure and council discretion. Staff recommends the cleanest and most straightforward approach, allocating $1 million from the council discretion to be distributed reserve to fully fund both the vacuum truck and the Chrissy grant match. This approach supports long-term financial stability and preserves flexibility in other reserve categories. I am happy to answer any questions.
Question.
Yes.
Is the intention to retain the old vacuum truck? Originally, it was talked about selling that, but
So I do believe they still plan on selling that truck. The timing in which they plan on selling it, I am not sure.
So are there any more large purchases that we're looking at for this fiscal year?
Not necessarily for this fiscal year, but potentially for this biennium. I'm glad you asked. So moving on to the next part. I don't have a lot prepared for this. Unfortunately, Casey wasn't able to join us tonight, and he was going to talk about this project. I do have a little bit written down about it, just so I don't botch it. The Ochiko Heights, this is a project that we are looking at that is a priority. It's been identified in our master plans for both the water and the streets. And so what they're looking at is a water line replacement to be able to serve the new development that's been coming in. But what really needs to happen is the streets need to be repaved. And so it's the chicken before the egg. We need to do the water lines before we can do the street. And this is a $2 million project. So this is on the horizon and potentially going to be an ask for the reserves,
For next fiscal year, not,
but potentially.
yeah, okay.
What do we, what in your view, I guess you're estimated, what do you estimate any future funds coming into those categories where we could use this?
So it's hard for me to estimate beyond this fiscal year right now. But I am estimating that the categories will, that we are going to have another $2 million to be distributed. And that's conservative,
Yeah, and I wanted to consider, I didn't want a high level, very, very conservative estimate.
about $2 million. And then that will be distributed to the buckets.
That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I think that it's imperative for us to recognize that by being able to pay cash for this and not do an internal transfer of funds, payback type, that this actually saves our community members money. And I think that it's very important for us to recognize that this is a means through which we can save the community residents money in the long term. So I don't know if you need a motion to approve that process or what you are needing.
Yes, a motion would be required with a second and a vote. It's already been budgeted, so that's why it doesn't need a resolution, but there does need to be authorization from council. Ms. Antrim has provided two different potential motions for you in her staff report. And so there's one that's a higher number and there's one that's a lower number.
Okay.
Seems like there's a number of different alternatives that you could use for using some of the reserve funds. I mean,
Correct.
you said alternatively, you could do 500,000 from the infrastructure and 500 from council. I would like to see it distributed some, because we don't know what's going to happen for the rest of the year. And now that you brought this up,
Mhm.
you don't know if that's going to happen this year or next year.
Correct.
So, in my mind, I would like to see that we do like 400,000 from the infrastructure and then the other 600,000 from the council. That's my suggestion.
And this is absolutely a council decision, and there's an infinite number of ways that the money can be broken out.
I guess- So are we actually going to vote or make a motion on this tonight too?
Not on this, no.
Just-
We're not quite prepared for this,
Okay.
but this is something that we know is coming on the horizon, and I was, in case the question came up, prepared to let
Oh,
you
no.
know.
Fine.
hmm
I guess that whether it comes out of one of the three buckets or the reserve portion that we have discretion. I mean, I see where, Jan, I see where you're coming from, is not to take too much out of one, but it's all money that would go into those anyways, so it'd take it out of the discretionary portion of it. I don't know, so I don't know. To me, I would be happy to do it either way, as long as it gets done, so. I mean, does it make a huge difference how that's divided?
The only thing that it makes a huge difference about is what is going to be allocated in those budget or in those buckets. So the council discretion is a lot more discretionary. And if we take it out of infrastructure, there's going to be less money that's specifically available for infrastructure.
Good. I guess that's what I was looking for.
hmm
I would prefer to not take it out of infrastructure. I would prefer to take it out of the council discretionary, take it all out. And I appreciate, Janet, your position, but I feel looking down the road, that would be the more prudent move for us. Because if we're going to be needing money for the infrastructure, we need to reserve that protect it as much as we can.
Can council discretion reallocate back to infrastructure if needed?
Absolutely. it's just a more direct approach to just take it out of.
While we're at it, can we make that a one-way road? When we do all that?
I can't make those decisions.
Well,
Well, I'll make a motion then to recommend that the council approve use of $1 million in the policy reserve from the council discretionary fund to be distributed in support of the purchases for the vacuum truck and the Chrissy grant match.
Second.
we have a motion and a second on Steve's motion, so do we need to do any discussion?
You can ask for discussion or you could call for a vote.
We can call for a vote, see where it goes from there. If that's council's good, I would like to do that and then move forward from there. But, so, all in favor of Steve's motion and second, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So five
Five to two.
yea, 2 nays.
Yeah, and the reason, so we can have discussion, the reason I think it ought to be distributed in two pots instead of all coming out of one. So that's why I voted against it.
Yep, I'm on the same boat with Janet. I think that leaving more in the council discretion would have left flexibility, more flexibility. But
But I totally agree with what Steve said earlier. It wouldn't be prudent on our part to finance it. You know, we need to take it out of these pots.
Well, I got what I needed, so thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so staff reports and requests, city manager's report, Mr. Forrester.
Thank you, Mayor. Starting off tonight with public safety and dispatch. Our public safety dispatch director, Katie, is reporting that we officially have 2 call takers joining the team on March 2nd, with hopes of getting them into training at the end of March. The police department had a busy Valentine's weekend with some DUI arrests, 7 in total, which is very high for us. So a little bit unusual. And also the first of 2 of the 6 new police vehicles are almost completed. And then we'll have IT step in and finish up the rest of the equipment installs. Moving on to Public Works, Casey unfortunately can't be with us. But what Casey's team's reporting is we had 2 mandatory meetings for invitations to bid on 2 upcoming projects, the Main Street paving and stormwater improvements and the Fairmont Waterline project. Both had record attendance, and the Fairmont Waterline project had over 20 contractors for that bid. Also, Casey had a TV interview with KTVZ and took them on a tour of the ASR facilities. We'll keep you posted on when that interview will be aired. I haven't seen it yet. I don't think anybody else has, or did it come out yet?
The full interview hasn't, but parts,
Parts have.
or at least put out parts of it.
Okay, excellent. On the railroad side, Matt's reporting a good February so far, but looking forward, anticipated some slowdown, a slight lull, as he put it, for the first couple weeks in March. And then before I ask Zach to come up, he has some slides he wants to share with the council tonight. Just a couple of updates. The Valentine's Day buffet from Ron's perspective had about 200 people. We've also had a real good start to February so far as we wrap it up, and seems to be a little bit cooler weather slowing us down a little bit. High school golf team starts up in a couple of weeks, so it's that time already. And at this time, I'd like to have Zach come up, and he's got a couple slides on some upgrades to the Middle Lakes facility.
High school golf next week now.
Next week. Yeah.
That's when it's going to snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show you some pictures. We did the carpet project last week. So Ron was closed last Monday through Saturday afternoon, got open Saturday evening for the firefighter banquet. And then he was open on Sunday. Golf course was closed a couple days because of snow, and a couple days for when they were working in the pro shop. But I wanted to show you some pictures. So here's kind of the before. Here's where we were at 20 plus years on this carpet. So it was starting to show its wear. You know, we had some stains. These are kind of high traffic areas. This is the banquet room, just it was starting to come apart at some of the seams, and it was just time to replace. So here's some pictures of during the construction or demolition, the removal. I got to be a pack mule the last week, and so we moved furniture from one room to the next, and then to the next, and then back to the other, and then to the middle, and then back to the sides. And yeah, it was really exciting. But
Did you use
turned out good.
those carpet remnants for an indoor putting green?
Yeah, so I brought this picture so the banquet room was their toughest to remove, but they said that whatever glue we used 20 years ago was damn good because they had trouble getting it up. So they were only able to get about, 2 to 4 feet strips at a time. So it took a little bit of manual labor for them to get that out. So there wasn't much that was usable after it was done. Here's the finished product. So that's the banquet room. We were happy with how it turned out. We went through quite a process of picking the color. We picked this one. They told us it was unavailable. Then we had to start over, went through all that, found another one we liked. We went to order it. They said, oh, we can do the first one. And it was like, at that point, I was like, just whichever one you can get done quicker, just get it here. But here's the restaurant. So that's the dining room and the bar and golf shop. So anyways, that's all I got for you. Just wanted to show you.
So it's great.
It's very nice. Yeah.
He was down there Saturday night and it looked really good.
Yeah. They were still working that night when you guys were there, but
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Moving on to the airport, Kelly joined us last week for an update. He's been working with the county on the budget process specifically for the airport. It's going well. Talks and planning for the upcoming fire season are already beginning with the agencies due to the low snowpack. And we have one new hangar that the foundation is completed and walls are expected to go up with weather permits. I think this is number 5 this last 12 months of new hangars up at the airport. So still very busy up there from the general aviation community. On the planning department, things are a little slow. No new development other than what's been reported already. Still waiting for some residential developers who have everything ready to go to start moving forward on 2 other additional 2 subdivisions that are ready to go, but nothing's been started yet. Moving on to IT. All the new Axon equipment has been installed and used for PD. These are the new body cams. So Shane's reporting those are going well. Our public safety team is very pleased with that, with how they performed so far. And the fire department will be the next area that gets a new phone system upgrade, probably started on this week. Finance side, we're busy making sure all the numbers are lining up with the budget. We talked a little bit about that with Lori today on the opportunity that you guys voted on. Public relations, Sean Ray's getting ready to roll out the March content for social media. Other than that, it's been very quiet. The mayor and council, don't forget registration is open for the League of Oregon Cities Spring Conference, which will be held in Pendleton, Oregon this year. And also Russ DeBoot, our fire marshal, joined us for our last meeting, and he's reporting fire district is also in the middle of budget preparations. In addition, a couple of notes I wanted to share with council. I was invited by Harney County Commissioner Rob Frank to come over and speak to them a little bit about some of the opportunities regarding biomass generation and data center build out for Harney County. And, things are pretty tough over in Harney County. They've lost a grocery store, so they're kind of down to Safeway. They only have one pharmacy. Steve Uffelman was kind enough to go over and join me. Had a great conversation with Rob, gave him some ideas. They don't have a lot of money to spend, obviously, but certainly they have power. They have some municipal water. They've got land, and they're just looking at ways to leverage the assets they have to try to create more jobs over there. One of the things I did find interesting talking with Rob, Commissioner Frank, was that there's a processing plant now started up on part of the old mill site there, for beef production, which I thought is a great thing to do with as much cattle ranching as down in that part of our state. So not all negative. They're resilient bunch down there in Burns and Hines and Harney County. And so I think I know he really appreciated Steve, you being there and sharing some information. In addition to that, along the sharing information, we had a request from the city of Madras on some of their potential development interest over in Jefferson County. And so we're going to be meeting with them tomorrow and discuss our experiences and try to help them, get a foothold on some development over in that part of our Tri-County region. Lastly, the mayor got invited to, as he reported previously, to participate on the governor's committee for data centers in Oregon. And after some review, Margie and Donna, who are facilitating the governor's committee, contacted the mayor and I and thought it was really important because the mayor can't make it in person. So they asked if I could come up to Portland this Friday and participate on a panel for that committee. I agreed to do that. I also roped in Caroline Irving to go along with me. Casey was going to go, but unfortunately can't make it. But Caroline, I thought would be great, and asked Donna Silverman if with her background in managing and putting together some of the agreements that we had on the enterprise zone and tax abatements and other things in accordance with that. And she thought that was a great idea. So I'll be on the panel. Caroline will be backing me up, and I can call on her, and then the mayor will be available on Zoom. But, Prineville's got a pretty interesting story of success as it relates to what the data centers impact. And more importantly than that, we're going to focus on how we leveraged our partnership with them to increase our capacities for utilities, water, wastewater, and obviously streets and things like that, and their impact they've had on the schools. So really focusing in on the importance of having a partnership with your developer. So it's kind of an honor to be asked. Our community's been asked to represent the state in that regard. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
I have no question. I have maybe a comment about not the data center part, but Harney County.
Yes.
We talked about a meat processing plant there. And I know there's going to be a story coming out soon about how that IP28.
Right.
We've heard about that.
Right.
If that makes it to the ballot, which looks like it's going to, if it passes, what that's going to do to Oregon. So
Yeah.
I think as a council, we might think about in the future how we can defend that. That's a way of life around here. It affects all. It would affect all animal production, food, fairs, anything to do with animals.
Yeah.
All hunting, which a lot of, like me and my family, we don't rely on it because I definitely don't get something every year, but it's my family grows beef or raises beef, and we ranch, and that's a way of life for, I know, a lot of people that are here. And we need to think about I would like to see us in the future, if that does make it our position, and there needs to be a campaign. There already is a campaign going out against it to notify people of what it actually is. So I just want us to be cautious of that in the future.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm just now starting to get the last couple business days, starting to get some information from people like Farmers Conservation Alliance and other lobby groups specific to agriculture. So I will be forwarding those and putting those out as for information, so the council can be ready to take action should they choose to do so. But great point. Thank you. Yeah.
Hate to bring in something bad at the end of all that good.
Yeah.
So the police vehicles, those are the electric ones?
No, these are the patrol. Yeah. And the electric chain. Can you comment on that? Yeah, the patrol cars. Yeah.
And then Josh, for Ochco Mill, the building of the apartments and that's going on there, do you know when it's going to be near completion so people can start moving in and maybe they'll have a.
Yeah, they have a website I've been directing people to, PrimeVilleAPTS.com, and you can actually sign up and register it. On that, it does say spring. So I'm thinking like April, that the streets aren't paved yet. So they need the batch plants to open and they can pave St. Charles and Stewart Drive and their parking lots and all that. So that's the buildings are, you can see they're planning to have them hopefully rented in starting in the spring, late spring, I would say.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Move on to item 4, Police Department Annual Report, Interim Chief Wilson.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. For the record, Shane Wilson, Interim Chief, Prineville Police Department. So tonight, just before you guys, we're gonna go over our 2025 annual report, some of our numbers, some of our accomplishments, some of the things that we've done throughout the year. We'll go over some of the staffing, our calls and cases taken, Patrol Division, our evidence, our 911 Communications Division, some of the community outreach we did, and some of the updates. And Councilor Hutchinson, you were just asking, I'm not sure exactly how to use there we go. That's one of our hybrids right there. So we just received 6 more. Mr. Forrester talked about 2 of them being up there being outfitted today up at Wireworks. So so far so good with them. We kind of got them by accident. The first time we'd ordered regular gas vehicles and these kind of showed up and we tried them out. And so far, according to Lieutenant Vollmer, we have less maintenance problem so far. So still kind of a small sample size. So this is just a quick overview of our organizational chart. Right now we're sitting at about 1 patrol officer short. We have some people out on leave and baby leave and whatnot, but so just kind of an overview. Our communications division, right over here, that's Katie. And then we've really built up this division, our school resource officers, and then we added a non-sworn community service officer and the mental health officer. So she'll have a presentation for you down the road. This just gives a little overview of our cases. They're CADs, they're computer aided dispatch. These are calls for service. These could be traffic stops. They could be subject contacts. They could be calls like a burglary or domestic. In the orange here at the bottom, this is this year or 25. This is compared to the previous year in gold. So in all the categories, cases taken went up. Our CAD numbers went to 19,131. DUIs increased a little bit, as well as arrest went up close to 100 there. This page here is going to break it down a little more. 24 and 25. So in 24, we did 1,356 cases, and 25, 1,471. What's important to note is the case numbers versus the number up here, that 19,000. That's the calls for service. That could be your traffic stops. That could be getting sent to a call. It could be a variety of things, but it's a lot of service calls. That breaks down to about 1,600 calls a month, or about 53 per day. In that same period of time, we conducted 3,947 traffic stops. But you'll see over here, we issued 186 citations total. So we issued about 3,761 warnings. So we do a lot of education out there. We don't have a huge citation number or anything here. Our arrests went up, like I mentioned a little bit. Our DUIs went up. Stolen vehicles remain the same. And then down here on the officer safety, just kind of interesting here, the use of force, our uses of force when we've effected an arrest or made an arrest are about the same as the year before, but a little bit that's deceiving about that number is a use of force to us could be any type of shown force. So if we display a firearm or a taser to gain compliance in those situations, that's counted as a use of force. So there's probably, if you reduce that probably by about 30% is actual like hands-on use of force with somebody. This is a little disturbing here. Officer assaults have went up a little bit, and I put down here in the asterisk, we're seeing a small increase in just resistive arrests and assaults on law enforcement, not just here in Central Oregon, but just across the nation, we're seeing a spike in that. So we did have more officers assaulted last year, but relatively still a small number when you look at 19,131 interactions, 9 assaults, which it should be 0, but this is our patrol division. Of course, I could not get that any bigger font. I apologize for the writing, but we're an accredited police department. We're accredited by the Northwest Accreditation Alliance. We received our reaccreditation in 2025. So in Oregon, there's about 174 law enforcement agencies. That includes sheriff's office, municipal police. And Prineville PD is one of about 65 agencies in Oregon that is accredited. Accreditation is a very thorough, long process to ensure that we're using best practices. So we've been accredited now. I think this was our 3rd accreditation update. It's the most visible, our patrol division is most visible. It's what you see the officers out patrolling around and on traffic stops. They're the first ones to respond to an emergency call. Technically, our dispatchers are the first ones to respond to an emergency call. They're our true first responders, and they dispatch these guys to go out. They're there to serve as a deterrent to crime. They also service to the public. That could be assisting motorists from change tires. And I think I just talked about one of our dispatchers recently just helped deliver a baby a couple weeks ago. So our DPSST is the state accrediting body. That's the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. And they're the ones that certify all police officers in the state of Oregon. So whether you're a sheriff's deputy, an OSP trooper, a municipal police officer, everyone goes through the DPSST. It's its own accreditation, if you will. And they require all police officers to complete a minimum amount of training every year in order to maintain our certifications. It includes things like firearms, defensive tactics, first aid, CPR, ethics, things like that. We far exceed their minimum amount of training. In addition, we also have certified instructors in firearms, defensive tactics, CPR, first aid, DUI, taser, and mental health, CIT. So we completed approximately 3,078 hours of training in 2025. Our property evidence room, there's just a couple pictures up there on the right of our evidence room. I noted, I think it was last year, but we had an outside professional that does evidence rooms audit our room, just as a best practice thing. And that goes to Amy here, who's sitting in the audience. She was running our evidence room at the time, and that company had said told me that we had one of the best evidence rooms that they'd seen in their in what they do. We submitted, as you can see, 3,570 items in evidence. 87 handguns and 57 rifles were seized or taken for safekeeping. 519 drug items, that's meth, fentanyl, cocaine, heroin. 600 pounds of evidence was securely destroyed, because once we have it all and this works through the court, we got to do something with it. So it has to be destroyed securely. We did our first annual med take back. That's where people pull in and can take back prescription meds. So we got 35 pounds of prescription drugs. And total, because we have our little drug containers up front, we took in 300 pounds of household prescription medication, which it's good to get those. And I know everyone has their own little like mini pharmacy probably above their refrigerator or in their bathroom, but those things can sometimes get in the wrong hands. So we take that stuff back at the police department.
Shane, whoops.
Yeah.
Can you move on?
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the handguns and rifles that you seized or took for safekeeping,
Yeah.
this is safekeeping because maybe some people were thinking about using them for suicide or harming someone else.
Yeah.
And they get them back.
Yes, sometimes that is the case. There's different laws in Oregon. Sometimes they are seized just at a scene. To your point, the suicide, we would take those at that time. Sometimes they're released to like a family member or something like that. Some of them, people just shouldn't have weapons. These are people that aren't they're legally prohibited from having weapons. And so those, of course, are seized if they're, like a felon or have some type of court order. And then there's some people that we've had that have actually just brought weapons in that said, hey, I inherited these. I don't want these anymore. I've decided I don't want these in my house, and they'll turn them over as well. And there's a whole process that has to go through that before it ends up anywhere else. But yeah, some of those were just seized from like criminal activity as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So our 911 communications division, led by Katie, they handle all 911 emergency calls. We're the answering point, the public safety answering point here. We dispatch for Crook County as well as all non-emergency calls. That includes the Prineville Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, Crook County Fire Rescue, Parole and Probation, Crook County Juvenile Department, Search and Rescue, the Forest Service, BLM, Rager, EMS, and after hours COIDC and City and Prineville Utilities. They were reaccredited. They went through their own accreditation process like the police department. Of course, they're under the umbrella of the police department, but they went through their own separate accreditation, and they just got their third accreditation in 2025. Right below, you can see some of their call handling. It's pretty impressive. They're handling 9,084 911 calls in 25, non-emergency calls 34,609. You can see the outbound calls. Total calls 54,512. And we even added the text 911, kind of a new technology right there, text 911. We've had 159 sessions in 2025, but that comes out to about 149 calls every single day. At the bottom, you'll see it says 97% of all 911 calls were answered in less than 15 seconds, with the average being right about 5.5 seconds. So NENA, which is the National Emergency Number Association, kind of sets the benchmark for that nationwide, and the benchmark they set is 90% within 15 seconds. So we're hitting 97%. So kudos to the team upstairs. These are just incidents. We kind of talked about the police department. We had the 19,131. Crook County had 15,790. Remember, all these have to be entered by our dispatchers. So those like 5 screens there, they're entering those calls onto one of those screens. Crook County Fire Rescue 4551, and then other like OSP, BLM 976 for a grand total of 40,448 entries they made. I wrote down there just 50% of the time, or close to 50% of the time, that's been with one dispatcher, just with staffing shortages that they're handling. And if you can imagine one like car wreck out on Highway 126 at 4 p.m, it's not uncommon to receive 25 to 30, 40 911 calls. And they have to answer all of those calls because one may not be related to the, to the crash itself. So sometimes that's one dispatcher doing that. So
That's amazing.
it's truly amazing. So community outreach, we do a lot of community stuff. There's just some photos of us down bottom right as I said doing Shop with a Cop just the last couple months. These are just a list of a lot of the things we do. The Memorial Day Parade, of course, the Roundup, which seems weird that it's already coming up again pretty soon. Chili Feed and the 4th of July Parade and the fair, Faith in Blue, Candy Crawl, Christmas Parade. We do a lot of community events. Just a couple of our updates over in the 2 great pictures are a picture of our drones that we talk about a little bit here, and that's one of our drone vehicles. So we upgraded our rifles. I came to council, I guess it's been about a year ago now. We upgraded those to our suppressed rifles with their updated optics. So those have been working out really well for us. We added 2 new M30T drones with infrared technology and a speaker system, as well as 2 Avata 2 drones, which are dealers small drones that I don't think I have a picture on here, but they like go into houses. We can send them into a house. But that picture up on the right is that's the M30 drone right there. And maybe a month ago I presented to you and I showed you an apprehension that was done by an M30 drone. We added 1 non-sworn community service officer, which he stays very busy in his role. And we added a full-time sworn mental health officer, which I've talked about before. She has additional training in clinical social work. We added 1 additional detective. So we now, for the first time, at least since I've been here, we have 3 detectives. And there was a time where they were just very reactive It was hard to be proactive. It was just a case after case after case. And so this is allowing us to work some more proactive type cases. We onboarded 6 contract dispatchers through a partnership with the Deschutes County 911 to kind of help us with those calls upstairs. Promoted a sergeant and interim lieutenant to a full-time lieutenant. We promoted 1 sergeant. We added the Cortico app for officer wellness. So we're really trying to focus on just wellness overall. And it's an app that goes on their phone that they have. It's also for their family members. Trained 2 CPR and first aid instructors, signed the Axon, which we've talked about. I'm wearing one today. We have a partnership with Central Oregon Drug Team with a part-time detective, and in dispatch added Power Ready, which is a training tracking software. And then finally, our goals for 26 is staff all positions. As I mentioned, we have 1 patrol officer position still to fill. Continue to explore options and grants for adding like a canine, canine team. We're really working right now on our peer support team with working with some physicians. I'd like a physician level oversight for mental health and mental wellness for the employees and the officers. We are still exploring options to add a relief shift. This is something as Prineville gets busier, we're noticing that we really need another shift that comes on in the afternoon. It'd help us reduce overtime, allow more flexibility for time off and manage their workload a little better. So looking at upgrading, we're always looking to upgrade our less lethal options. So there's this is called 40 millimeter less lethal system. Obviously anything that's less lethal is good. And we are requiring all officers and dispatchers to attend an updated CIT evidence-based training, just like a de-escalation type training. It's a week-long course. Our mental health officer, Emily Jerome, is a CIT instructor. And so it's something the academy is teaching now, but we're going to get everybody through it on the dispatch side and on the police side. So with that, that's the update for 2025. You have any questions I can answer?
A lot.
All right.
I should have wrote something down because I was out thinking of questions. I didn't want to bug you as you were going through. Calls for service. Every call for service, does someone get contacted for that? So does an officer reach out via phone or in person to that individual or that call?
Yes and no. A call for service is the CAD generation is anything that dispatch entered. So that could be when we use calls for service kind of in a generic term, we use CADs, but if an officer makes a traffic stop, that generates a CAD entry. If an officer gets dispatched to a call because somebody called that there was a burglary, that creates its own CAD number. However, if an officer or if dispatch is entering an attempt to locate on a stolen vehicle or something, that would create a CAD entry. That's that 19,000 CADs that were entered. So the case numbers are a little different, meaning those were like criminal cases, case paper, like they wrote paper for that. So to give you an example, if we go to a barking dog call and we tell, people, hey, don't, keep your dogs quiet, basically. And they say, oh, we're sorry, we'll keep our dogs. That's not going to generate a police report. It's going to generate a CAD document, but officers aren't going to go back and write a 7-page document for that. Now, if it gets to a point where this was a nuisance problem, they were cited or something like that, or someone was arrested, then that would generate what's called a case number.
Okay. Because I've always wondered that, and I know in the past we talked about it.
Mhm.
Every one of those calls. I know a dispatcher though. Any call, they're talking to someone.
Absolutely. Yes.
A lot of calls, and that leads me into my next, I guess, question. Are we, and I know we are, but I'm gonna ask it, that are we preparing ourselves for the future, the growth Prineville's expecting? I mean, we've grown a couple thousand just in the last few years. So, are we prepared for that? And do you or Katie are in the future going to need more staff?
Yeah.
I would love to prepare earlier for that than later. And I know you are, and I know I'm not saying you're not.
Yeah, that's a great question. So strategic planning is huge for us. We're always talking about the future. We can never remain stagnant, especially as Prineville continues to grow. I think it's been mentioned in there, Crook County, you know, one of the faster growing populations in the state of Oregon. So we're always looking ahead. We're always trying to be one step ahead. So to give you an example of that is when we're building like apartment complexes, we may see those as, you know, housing coming in. We see them from a police department as 700 new vehicles, 700, you know, more cars, yes, things like that, more people coming into town. And when you put, you know, people in town, things happen. And so we're always trying to stay ahead. One of the issues, not just with us, but nationwide for us at dispatch, is just a nationwide shortage of law enforcement. When I started in this career, if there was an opening for a police officer at my old agency, there'd be 100 applications for one spot. So you went through you know, it was hard to get on with the police department. Now, you know, you have one opening and you might have 10 or 12, 13 applicants for that. Ever since really kind of 2020, we really saw a decline. A lot of people got out, and we've had to learn how to make that more competitive for people to, you know, still want to do this job. And that's not just us here. Nationwide, there was an article I read just back east about 911 and just the trouble they're having, you know, getting people to want to do that. And so we're always looking for ways to be more competitive and take care of our folks and have good equipment and make sure they're properly trained to keep them retained here as well in Prineville.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The strategic planning is what and I know that's something I've picked up and I've learned over 15 years from Steve.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're helping you guys.
Yeah, and as in the update it said, we're looking for this mid shift. So we started this a couple of years ago. We have one officer in the academy right now, but we already have the makings of this next shift that's coming in. Now, I say in the makings because we have one in the academy. There's still a lot of training, and then, you know, someone's out because they're having a baby and things like that. But trying to build in a mid shift. We have really focused on building up like our detectives division and our community service side of things for nuisances. Our detectives are much more proactive now. There'll be a press release coming out later, but they, you know, made a bust, I think Friday or Saturday with a Prineville dealer that was dealing fentanyl and seized, I think, like 1/3 of an ounce of fentanyl, which is a lot of fentanyl for fentanyl. But so we're really trying to get more on that proactive side of things too, for that side of it.
So Shane, I mean, it's a delicate question. So are wages part of the issue too, on why it's more difficult to get people into the police arena?
Yeah, a little bit. Wages are I'll say a slice of the pie. It's really more about how you take care of folks. Yeah, there's probably a dollar amount that will get people to go to a certain place, but we're pretty competitive wages wise. So it's really just about taking care of your people, having good equipment for them. You know, people don't want to work in toxic places, and part of it is just, yes, there's law enforcement's changed since 2020, really, and there's not as many people in that pool anymore. That pendulum will switch and it will come back. So right now it's starting to swing back the other direction, but it really swung in the opposite direction for a while.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. All right, item number 5, the council training opportunities, Mr. Forrester.
Thank you, Mayor. Last council meeting, we provided the council with some information on the League of Oregon Cities training program specifically for council members. We think there's some real value there, but this is a council decision. So I didn't hear from anybody. I hope that the council will take advantage of this opportunity. I think it's good for all of us. We certainly are from a staff perspective are dedicated to continuous training on new things as the world changes. So I met with the mayor this afternoon, and I'd like to just turn it over to you, Mayor, on, you had some thoughts and ideas on maybe how to get this moving, if to determine if whether you have some interest in doing that, and then allowing staff to set those up for you.
First off, I'll have to say I'm probably the most guilty party of not getting back to staff on that, that was presented. So I did go through it today, had a chance to look through the training, that was presented. And I sent Lisa a list of my in priority, which trainings I would like to see. I was hoping, and I'd like to hopefully get council to do the same thing this week by Friday, if you can send Lisa, and then we can move forward with planning, when to do that training, because they will come here, correct?
Correct,
I asked
yeah.
that today. There is some online opportunities. They would come here.
Yeah.
The trainings, there is a couple, there's one I think that was 4 hours. The longest one I looked at that I would really like to see was 2 hours, but you could compile 3 or 4 of those trainings in one day and only be 4 hours into it. So that would be I know everybody's busy, especially now coming up to springtime and summer's going to hit. But I would still like to see us do something. I'm very guilty. Like I said, I'm gonna be the first one to tell you, I'm guilty of not jumping on this right away. And I want to be more proactive about this. And there's some good training. And I did, Lisa reminded me today that the ethics training, I did put that on my list, that I think that's a good reminder. But every election cycle, any new council members have to go through, or if you're reelected, you have to go through it again anyway. So I could take that off the list because that's a requirement now. But the other ones, I think there was some really good training. We all have a list in this packet. So just let Lisa know what you'd like to, you're interested in. I gave her 5 priorities. There was a couple I wasn't too worried if they were here and your priorities are different than mine. Great, I'll do whatever council decides. But I think it's a good opportunity and we should take advantage of it. So that's all I had to say on it. There's no decision making today. Just get back to Lisa as soon as you can with any, if that's okay, Lisa. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you first. Okay. I would say email me, but I don't want to cause a serial meeting. So email
Lisa.
Email Lisa.
Will do.
All right. Thank you, guys. Are there any council, sorry, Steve, were you finished?
I'm finished. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah.
Are there any council reports or committee reports?
I have a COAC
Yeah.
report. So, COAC meetings last week, I think I told the council they've moved that meeting to the Bend ODOT offices. So I had Casey sit in with me and we did it by Zoom. The biggest issue on the plate was, it's probably been 4 months ago, Caroline, that ODOT reached out and asked for project proposal. It's been a while back. I asked Casey and Caroline to put together something. There was a little bit of criteria, but not much. Where this money's coming from, we're not real sure. And in the meeting, it sounded like they still haven't decided just how much is going to be available with their funding issues and all that. But anyways, Casey and Caroline put together a project that we submitted and spoke about last Thursday, which would finish the 3rd Street project, which would be complete repave. Of course, ODOT in the past, when we were doing the 3rd Street project and they did their asphalt analysis and all that, said that it had to be completely reconstructed. That's completely correct, but and then to finish out the sidewalk, mid-block sidewalks, because quite frankly, they redid the ADA ramps, but we're
really out of compliance in between those. So, we didn't put together a dollar amount. The neat thing about this project is everything's already, been designed. It's sitting on the shelf because all that was done when we went through the process for Third Street. And then, of course, you know, as we moved along and all that, prices escalated and all that, and we had to cut things out. So it's a shovel-ready type project. How well that's gonna score, we'll have a POAC executive meeting next month. And that's when we'll rank those projects. Of course, everybody had some, like Bend, Deschutes County had a couple and all this. How well we're gonna do is pretty fuzzy because there's a big push for money to go to 97. And I know Jerry's been on COAC before as a county representative. Mr. Effelman was on COAC for the city. And we've all seen it that 97 gets priority. And there was a big push from primarily the Jefferson County commissioner, along with Deschutes County's Patty Adair and Bill Chang, and they've actually been going to Salem lobbying for what they're considering a mega 97 funding bill. So anyways, we'll know more in maybe a month or a month and a half or something like that. Casey was busy after that. I was busy and didn't stay on the meeting through the entirety, but that was the main focus of the meeting.
Scott, are you on the executive committee too?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you.
Any other committee reports or reports from council? Right. No, we'll move on. Ordinances, ordinance number 1306, adopting changes to Prineville Code Section 30.01. First presentation, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. We talked about this a couple meetings ago, really after our January meeting of this year. Pursuant to the code, we meet every first Monday of January. This would change that to doing it every other January. Actually, it would be on odd numbered years. So for 2027, for instance, you would still meet on the first January. That would allow you to swear in elected officials from the biennial elections that we have. I know you're on rotations, but in essence, every 2 years we have new or re-elected officials. So the thought process there was to have that meeting for every other year, and then you would just utilize if you're on an even numbered year, you'd utilize your regular meeting to do like a State of the Union or State of the City address. And so this was presented. This has been available to the public for a week. So if it's adopted unanimously today, then it would go into effect. If it is not, then and passes, then it would go to a second presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jared? I think it makes sense.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 1306, adopting changes to Prineville Code Section 30.01.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Thank you, Jared.
Yeah, thank you, Council.
Move on to resolutions. Resolution number 1638, approving a personal service agreement with Clear Trail CPAs for municipal auditing services. Lori Hooper Antrim.
Thank you, council. Hopefully you had a chance to look at the staff report in your council packet. Lori Hooper Antrim, Finance Director for the record. Resolution 1638 is before you for consideration, which authorizes a 2-year professional service agreement with Clear Trail CPA to perform the city's annual financial audits. As you know, an annual audit is required under Oregon municipal audit law, and it must be completed by an independent CPA licensed in Oregon. These audits must follow generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and Oregon Secretary of State municipal audit programs. Clear Trail CPAs has extensive municipal audit experience, including enterprise fund accounting and specific knowledge of Oregon's audit requirements. Oregon is facing a statewide shortage of qualified governmental auditors, which increases the likelihood of delayed reporting or challenges in securing an auditor should the city initiate a competitive selection process at this time. Retaining our current auditors helps mitigate this risk. To maintain objectivity, the city follows GFOA's best practices by rotating audit engagement personnel when procuring a new audit firm is not feasible. This practice is already incorporated into the city's current audit approach. The team at Clear Trails previously worked with our former audit firm before establishing their own practice, and they delivered a timely, accurate, and fully compliant audit for us last year. They already understand our financial structure, our enterprise operations, and our internal controls. That familiarity translates directly into efficiency. Clear Trail CPA's proposed fees are consistent with prior years as well as with market norms for municipal auditing in Oregon. Choosing a direct award in this case supports efficiency, reduces risk, and ensures continued compliance with state laws. On continuity alone, there are several advantages. They know our systems and processes, staff time required each year is reduced. We maintain consistent auditing methodology across multi-year trends. Costs remain stable and predictable. And importantly, they have a strong track record of meeting state reporting deadlines. The audit fees for the 2-year agreement are already included in the city's approved budget. Additional fees may apply if a single audit becomes necessary should federal expenditures exceed $1 million threshold, which they likely will. With all of this in mind, staff recommends approval of Resolution 1638, authorizing the city to enter into a 2-year professional service agreement with Clear Trail CPAs for municipal audit services. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Gave a pretty good detail of the
Yeah,
information.
council, Lori, help me out here, please, but I want to make it clear to council that these aren't the same. It's the same organization, but it's not the same people every year. I think that's really important for you to understand. So Lori, if you could just quickly describe how that works so that we don't get people that are doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I did briefly touch on this in the presentation, but basically we have the head auditor, and then the ones that are actually doing the work are different and they rotate out. So the people asking me for things and looking at them are different auditors, and they rotate out every 2 years.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
And that is part of the GFOA's best practice.
Yep.
There's no questions for Lori. I'm open to a motion to approve Resolution 1638.
I move to approve resolution number 1638, resolution of the city of Prineville approving a personal services agreement with Clear Trail CPAs for municipal auditing services.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
All right, so move on to resolution number 1639, authorizing the city to enter into an intergovernmental agreement for the Central Oregon Drug Enforcement Team. Interim Chief Wilson.
Evening, council. Again, for the record, Shane Wilson, right, Prineville City Police Chief. In your packets, you have the the updated intergovernmental agreement. We've had this agreement for a long time with Coles. Coles is a Central Oregon Law Enforcement Services Board that we all belong to in the Tri-County area. This agreement's intended to replace the existing IGA, will clarify roles, responsibilities, cost sharing for cooperative services, while supporting continued coordination and efficient service delivery. This one specifically supports our code team, Central Oregon Drug Enforcement Team, through our Coles partnership. The fiscal impact on this is already budgeted for through our budget process already and our annual Coles payment. Well, happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple. Under the fiscal impact, it mentions as a recent loss of some participating agency, contributions has impacted annual costs. Was there a particular reason why someone would move out of this, or one of the
Yes.
police units? Because it seems like a great connection for
Yeah,
everyone involved.
Yes, so Coles as the central, this is built within Coles. I want to say just recently, like I think it was Warm Springs Police Department, due to like budgetary issues, they opted out at right now. I don't know if they're coming back in or not. So it could fluctuate a little bit with that. This is with them out of it, the fiscal impact in here. This is with them not. I don't even know that our amounts actually changed in the last like 10 years. I think it's been the same, but it could vary in the future. I think we're planning on redoing these, each year. So we would know for next year if it does change. But yes, for the most part, most agencies, I think it was Warm Springs that opted out of the Coles agreement this year.
What's the FTE for this particular function? It seems pretty complicated once you read the agreement.
So for Coles itself is it's the Coles board. I wasn't here when it was created, but it's every police department, sheriff's office, I believe OSP is a part of it as well, and they all have one voting member per board. So we'll do, like executive sessions and things like that as well. And so it's mainly, Coles mainly covers like our SWAT team. This is a Central Oregon team. So all of Central Oregon, that's mainly a staffing issue. There's no agency here that has a large enough police department really have a full-time SWAT team. It also includes our drug enforcement team, code team, and which is all Central Oregon agencies or those that participate have the staffing to do so, and our major incident team. So when we have like a homicide or major incident, we have people that belong on that team, the major incident team. It's all that money kind of goes through the Coles to keep that up and buy equipment and things like that, SWAT vehicles and equipment and all that stuff's really expensive. So it's helpful when we have all of these agencies pitching in. Coles has been around. I don't know how long it's been around. It's before my time here. So I'm not sure like how far it goes back, but.
Thank you, Shane.
So Shane, you talked about some fentanyl bust.
Yeah.
Over the weekend. So was this agency involved in it, or can you say?
Yeah. So Code is our Central Oregon Drug Enforcement Team. That's through Coles. Regardless of an agency being part of it or not, they would still work drug cases. So typically is what that looks like as an agency assigns a detective to that team. And for some time, just with staffing issues and things like that, we didn't have a member on the team. Didn't mean they weren't working cases here, but it's one of those things that if you're not really participating to the team necessarily with an FTE, with a person, a lot of that times that focus goes somewhere else. So, and as you have a local person on the team, they know the players, they know the people. And so we just recently started back up where we have a member that's part-time with that team. And that team was responsible, and I don't have all the details yet on it. I believe the code itself, the organization code, which is again, an organization built with all of our police departments, will be doing a press release, but I've been told it was like 1/3 of an ounce or close to 1/3 of an ounce of fentanyl. And I know he distributed drugs in Prineville and Redmond and whatnot. So yeah, it's been it's a very proactive team. We've had a couple of good cases with it. Other questions? If there's no other questions, staff recommends that city council approve the intergovernmental agreement with Coles to support the continued participation in Code Central Oregon Drug Enforcement.
We need to include the dollar amount for the annual.
No, you just need to approve the resolution.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll move to approve resolution number 1639, authorizing the city to enter into a intergovernmental agreement for Central Oregon Drug Enforcement Team.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Shane. All right, we are down to visitors' appearances and requests. Would anybody in the audience or on via Zoom like to speak to the council? I'm not gonna pick on you tonight, Jason, so. Had a lot of information today, so thank the council, thank staff again. Lori, I feel terrible about the last meeting that I just sat in awe looking at that. And no, I was just in shock. Again, thank you for that. So, and thank the council and staff for all this direction we went into. All right, if no one wants to speak to us, I'm open to a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion in 3 seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all for being here.